All right, welcome back. It's the final mile. We're going to answer your questions. These come to us today from YouTube comments in our Facebook group. But make sure to check out all the other content at freight360.net, including our Freight Broker Basics course if you're looking for that educational option. And share it with your friends, all that good stuff. And check out the sponsors down below. It will help support the channel. All right. Our first question, Ben, this is going to probably go towards you more than anything. It's more of a niche that you're involved in, but it's on bulk tanker moves. So the question was, what pays more for dedicated contracts? This was an owner-operator looking to figure out where they want to go commodity-wise. I said, food grade or non-hazmat chemical tankers. They said, I'm a one-truck flatbed dry van carrier looking to move into bulk. So I guess because I'm actually curious myself, the profitability of bulk in general versus like just a basic dry van. What is like the average rates when you were in the bulk world? Like what's a rate per mile? And then we'll kind of compare it to a standard like dry van. Do you
So, I
recall?
mean, they're very different for very different reasons. So, for instance, I'm just looking at some of the stuff that's like, because food grade and non-hazmat chemical actually kind of overlap in a few things. There's lots of
Because
chemicals
you
that
could
are
have a food grade chemical.
glycerin, for example, is a food, it needs to go in a food grade trailer, right? That is certified, but it is also technically a chemical that is non-hazmat, right? So like there's a lot of overlap in some of these. And there's also very big differences in equipment. But like even just looking at some of the rates per mile, like and you could be at like 350 to 550 a mile,
Which
depending
is
on what
way
lanes.
above your dry van or flatbed
It is,
on a
but it
national
isn't.
average.
So here's the thing, right? And the thing you need to understand with running these types of lanes is those are typically
Are
like
they round trip?
yes. And here's why. There's not a lot of spot loads available for like day of or even a couple days in advance. And it's also really hard to line them up because you typically have to get a tank wash in between, which could be anywhere from a couple hours to like overnight leaving to get your tank washed. And if that doesn't get done on schedule, you miss the round trip. So what you end up having to do if you're literally running both sides of the lane, like, I don't know, North Carolina to like Houston and back, you need like a day or two gap in between them because you got to get the tank washed and get over to your next place. So it's a lot more per mile, but you have a lot more dead time where you're basically needing to get there way early to make sure you make your pickup. So even at 550 a mile, a lot of these are run round trip, so cut that in half, you're at 225 a mile. Now you got to throw in a tank wash. Maybe your customer pays it, maybe not, but that could be anywhere from 200 to 350. So now all of a sudden you're back to $2 a mile, like right out of the gate, right? So there are lots of things that really matter when you're trying to figure out, like when we run tankers, we would always look as like, how much can we earn per week, per driver on each piece of equipment, not necessarily per mile because when you factor all the dead time in, repositioning, getting there, getting back, like the numbers seem super high rate per mile, but when you figure out what that driver actually earns a week, they're not as exaggerated between the two, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
the way I would understand that then is like you look at that rate per mile, and if it's round trip, you cut it in half. Um, I guess the benefit to the tanker side is if you can get to a position like that where you're keeping your empty miles as low as possible and you're keeping your because if you look at, let's say the example you gave, and it's like, okay, well you're ending up getting 225 a mile, and you're like, all right, well maybe it's $2 a mile for a dry van, but that dry van also you have to factor in, like, if they're not doing round trip dedicated stuff, then they're going to be driving empty, deadhead 100 miles here, deadhead 150 miles here, etc. And I like how you pointed out, what are my earnings per week, right? That's, I think, per day, per week, all of that is a great way to look at it. So I think at the end of the day, the more specialized the niche is, very likely there's more potential for higher earnings on it. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense to incentivize anybody to operate in that world. But to the original question, food grade versus non-hazmat chemicals, the question may have been asked incorrectly, and I'm glad that you were here to answer because I wouldn't have been able to give that. So
Yeah, and I'm even looking at some of my stuff, and again, this is from a year and a half ago, but like, yeah, I'm seeing everything from like 550 a mile, 650 a mile. Oh, this customer awarded it for 550 a mile, said it was a great rate. But then I kind of look at the lanes they were associated with it, and like, it was because I was doing a lot of this, trying to match up basically back haul and front hauls with other customers. But then you run into like what becomes even more difficult is in a van. It doesn't matter if it goes in a van. I can pick up whatever you have and pick up whatever Steven has if it goes in a van. But when it's a tanker, you might need food grade. You might need a kosher cert. But Steven has a backhaul load. And he's like, yeah, great. You have a tanker. But what Steven puts in is going to put in my truck is not allowed before I load you, because then you get into like they're called approved prior loads. So basically, anytime I'm going to load for
how
you,
far back do they look?
usually three loads.
Okay.
Now it's a little different for different commodities, but like food grade glycerin, which is just one I did a lot of, they're going back three loads for every single one. So if you loaded peanut oil and you have an exclusion for peanut oil, then like I can't match those two lanes up. And that's it. You kind of run into the same thing you run into like with reefer LTL, like different temperatures, being able to put different commodities in the same piece of equipment really does make this a lot different. And like, there's just more things to try to determine when you're figuring out how much can I make per week, as opposed to just what am I getting per mile.
Gotcha. All right. Next question is, how do you get an email only prospect to take a phone call? So they went on to say like this person I'm prospecting will only respond to me via email. I can never seem to get them on the phone. I got a couple of thoughts on this. We probably need more information, but I usually, with anybody, the first time you're starting to communicate with them, I try to meet them where they're at, right? If like I've had people that I've talked to that like will just only text me. And they'll only text me when they have a question about something. And if I ask them something, they will not respond back, right? And the same thing can happen via email. And then I get people that
are probably like that.
Oh yeah.
Like there's just people that have that type of personality where like they just won't answer the phone.
The same thing, you could reverse engineer it. You could have a customer or someone that like what could get accomplished in an email, they will always call you about, right? And you just have to start wherever that relationship is. And if it's strictly just email, or if they're strictly just going to call you instead of sending a quick email, that's where you start. And then if someone's calling you too much, you can always try to build out like, hey, what do you think about, well, X, Y, and Z could be done over email. It's probably the quickest, easiest way to get it done. That way I can focus, best service for you, etc. Now, to get someone to go from email to phone, some prospects, they're just fishing you for rates, and you may never get them on a phone call. It could be that, you've got to try to work your way through their phone tree to where someone finally patches you through and you're like, Jim, glad I finally got you on the phone here. I know we've been emailing a lot. I had a couple of questions about that quote request you were sending over. Well, now you got them on the phone, and that's a gatekeeping technique that some prospects will use, because until they get something from you via email that they like, they don't want to let you through to the phone. So,
yep.
It's going to be the same way we teach about getting through gatekeepers and, trying to navigate your way through their phone system, through their directory, till you finally get them. What you probably want to do in an email is give them a reason to take time out of their day and hop on a phone with you. Do you have any thoughts on, I know it's kind of a generic question, but any thoughts on this?
Oh yeah, I do that all the time. So like a couple examples, right? Like I can't get somebody to answer when I call. I first try a couple different days of the week and times of the day to see if maybe I catch them at a better time where they maybe answer, right? Then I'm probably going to try to find a reason to make them want to pick up the phone. Like, hey, just saw this, had a couple quick questions. You got 30 seconds, didn't want to send you a super long email, maybe something to that effect, right? Giving them a reason of like, hey, I've got some guys lined up I think might actually be pretty cheap compared to what we've been quoting, but I want to ask you a few things that the drivers asked to see if we can make this work, right? I'm trying to think, what does it look like from their point of view? What would I be willing to talk to somebody about? And then I just start thinking like, how can I frame this to make them care enough to give me 30 seconds on the phone, right? So you're trying a bunch of different things to try to get them on the phone. The other thing is, like, I've definitely just had people that just don't talk to anybody. Like, I had customers that, like, just literally won't ever pick up the phone and talk to you. I am trying to find other people in the company to talk to then. I'm looking, who else has that job title that I can pick up the phone and call? Is there somebody in sales I can call and have be transferred over to that person? I'm going to try to call just random phone numbers to get maybe pushed over to that person. I mean, literally, I would go through every bag of tricks I could possibly think of to try to start building a relationship with anybody over there, whether it's
Yep.
their manager, their coworker, maybe it's to someone that works for them that is below them that maybe I can get on the phone. But just keep
Yep.
trying.
The big takeaway is you want to pose it in a way that it gives them an incentive to want to talk to you on the phone. So the examples you gave were great. All right. Lastly, is about the age of an authority. So this is a carrier asking, because a lot of some brokers will say, "Hey, we don't work with anybody that's got less than a year authority, etc." So the question was, if I pay for a new MC and insurance for 6 to 12 months without hauling anything, will it then count as seasoned for brokers who require it? So my understanding is yes, because as brokers, we can't see how many loads they've hauled, but what we can see is how many inspections they've had. So if you didn't meet my criteria or if you meet my criteria for 12 months, but you've had no inspections, you're throwing up all kinds of other red flags. Because if I'm like, he's got a truck, all right, he's been in business for a year, has never been inspected. Is he double brokering? Like, what's going on here? Like, that's where my brain would go. So technically, yeah, your authority is going to age. My recommendation would just be, if you're new, just do it the new way that everybody else does, right? You're going to have to go through, build relationships. You're probably not going to get the best lanes or the best paying freight that's out there. It's the same thing we deal with as brokers when we're new, is that we have to take time and build up trust. And with that comes the less profitable business as we're getting started off. What's your take on that?
Yeah, similar. I mean, agree with everything you said. What I would also do is start making phone calls immediately and trying to build relationships and just saying, hey, like, I'm new. This is what I would like to be able to do. I'd like to be able to build a relationship with you. I know I might not meet your criteria, but if you ever really need help with a load or a lane that comes up and you give me enough time, maybe I can help. Because what you're really trying to do is to get that brokerage to make an exception. And the easiest way to get them to make an exception is two things: getting them to trust you by talking to them. And second of all, being patient enough to where the opportunity happens where they're going to need to make the exception, right? It works the same thing with a broker trying to get in with a shipper. Hey, I know you guys aren't on board any new carriers, but if you ever need help and nobody else can get you a truck, I might be able to give you a hand. Give me a call. If I can, maybe we can work it out. And I can't tell you how many customers waive that and onboard you immediately because they actually need you to get that truck. The other thing is I would go through new brokers too.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the things that I've always we've done is, like, if they're under a year, we have that set as, like, it'll flag it as they're a new authority. But you talk to this owner operator and he's like, yeah, man, I just drove for 12 years under this other company. I wanted to go start my own shop. It's like, you probably got a way better driver on the other end of the phone there versus someone who started their business 2 years ago and passes that 12-month authority rule. So it's all, relative to the big picture. So like you said, pick up the phone, call people. But yeah, that is one of the hurdles for anyone that's new as a broker or
calling shippers. Like, if I'm a carrier and I really wanted to do that, honestly, like, I would probably call every shipper local to me and I would go there in person and start introducing myself. And I would say, hey, not expecting you guys to need any help right now, not expecting you guys to be able to talk about like running or doing business together, but I'm literally right up the road, starting a new trucking company. I've been driving for 12 years with a larger company. If there's ever an opportunity where we can talk, or you need local runs done last minute, my yard's 3 miles up the road. Feel free to give me a buzz. I'd love to be able to connect. And I would just do that with everybody. And then I would follow up with all those people 2 weeks later, and then I'd do it again, 2 weeks after that. And I would just keep doing that over and over, because one of them is going to go, yeah, I have this local lane that's a pain in the ass that I can't anyone get to cover last minute. And then you'll start getting random phone calls of like, hey, can you go grab this for me this afternoon? Sure. And again, you got to be available. You got to be able to help when they need the help too. But if you put that legwork in, like, you'll be able to get some business to get started and to be able to get your wheels turning.
What I'm curious on too is this person that's asking it, what are they doing in the meantime? Are they driving for our company? Because if that's the case, then you're in no rush. You might as well, while you're driving, be making those contacts. And, when I'm delivering to a certain place, like, hey, I'm actually, and you may have some sort of restrictive covenant, depends on, who you're working for. But if I've got FaceTime with this location already, I'm going to be like, hey, I'm actually looking at branching off on my own. You can have those conversations in person ahead of time. So, cool. Good stuff. Good questions. Keep them coming our way, and we'll keep answering them. Final thoughts, Ben?
Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
And until next time, go Bills.